Return, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a BYNA Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America. Hello, this is Stefania Pappas for BYNA Yosef North America. With me is Al McCarn, our Executive Director, and we are going to be interviewing Matthew Wearp this week. Tell us about Matthew, Al.
Yeah, what a great way to start the program. I always like to interview young people. Matthew is 20 years old. He is son number 3 of 5 sons in the Wearp family. And like his father, who we interviewed several weeks ago, Matthew is on the planning team with the nation's 9th of Av. Now, an advantage Matthew has, and you will hear this as he explains, is he's grown up in a family that has been involved with the nation of Israel and the Jewish people ever since he was a little boy. So at 20 years of age, he's been to Israel several times. He has interacted with the people of Israel, Jewish people in what the rest of the world says is the West Bank, but you and I know as Judea and Samaria. So that means he's gained in his youth a perspective that you and I gained in our, after we came into our adult years. I think you will all be refreshed by hearing this young man's story. So let's go on up to Missouri and meet Matthew Wearp. Hey, welcome back to another interview segment. This is Al McCarn, and today I get to travel all the way to Missouri to meet Matthew Wearp. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You are part of our planning team with the nation's 9th of Av, and that's one big reason that we're interviewing you. But mostly, Matthew, we want to get your story as a young man who has come down an interesting path as your family has come down. But let's just find out, who is Matthew Wearp?
Yeah, so I'm 20 years old. I guess since I was born, my parents have always, believed in Yeshua and always encouraged us to follow after him. We've always been involved with the Jewish people. And so my whole life has been a journey with Yeshua and walking with him. But recently it's just been, seeing what's happening in the world, seeing what's happening in Israel with the Jewish people. That relationship with him is always being strengthened, seeing his goodness, his faithfulness to his people, and seeing his faithfulness to me, So each and every day, my relationship with him is strengthened as I walk with him. So it's been a really great journey. And I'm, just so blessed to have the opportunity to have parents that have always been on this path of walking with Yeshua and then passing that down to me.
Oftentimes, folks have a moment, an event, some kind of revelation that brought them into a relationship with our Creator God. Do you have anything like that you could share with us?
I guess the most impactful things would probably be being in Israel. And I know one of the most impactful moments was just standing on the hills of Judea and Samaria and looking out over the vineyards and everything. And just at that moment, I remember all the prophecies about God talking about, these hills are going to be covered in vineyards. People are going to be coming back to the land. I'm seeing that in front of me, right now it's happening. And I think to see that was so impactful. And that's really what strengthened my faith, because here I am being part of prophecy, seeing God's faithfulness. And I think that's when I really just understood that God is working the world. He's allowed me to be a part of it. This is real.
I have stood on some of those same hills, but it was in my 50s when I got that same connection with thousands of years of the covenant people of God. And I'm hearing you explain it as a young man. Now, how old were you when you first went to Israel?
I first went to Israel, it's been, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years ago. So I've been now 8 or 9 times. And every time, has been so impactful on me.
Listeners who may not know your family and all you're involved in might wonder, well, how is it a young man gets to go 8 or 9 times to Israel while he's a teenager?
Yeah, so my dad has always had a love for Israel. Even when he was a young boy, he didn't understand, why more Christians weren't interested and connected with Israel. And so he went back in the 90s, and then he's always had a love for Israel and going over there. So we went first as a family back in, I believe, 2012. And so since then, we've been going with Hayovel, ministry that goes over there and helps Jewish farmers pick the grapes and work in vineyards. So we've done that. And now that we started our business, which brings products back from Judea and Samaria, we've been going every year to meet with our suppliers, meet with families there, strengthen relationships, bring new products over. And so, that's how I've been privileged to go over there so often, and hoping to go over there more maybe this year and years to come.
And what is your family business and ministry?
So in 2016 was when our business was founded, and we just wanted to find a way that we could stand with the Jewish people and combat the anti-Semitism that we were seeing in the world. In today's world, we see anti-Semitism rising again, unfortunately. And we felt like our family has been involved in remembering in Holocaust remembrance and Holocaust education, educating people about the Holocaust. My dad was the national coordinator of the March of Remembrance. And the March of Remembrance is where you bring people in a march to remember the Holocaust. And so when we saw, the rising anti-Semitism, people standing against Israel again, we felt that it was our job to stand up and make a difference. One of the reasons the Holocaust happened was because people weren't willing to stand up, and they were silent, and they were apathetic to what was happening. So for our family, we felt this was the time, that we were going to stand up and say, never again, we're not going to be silent. And so we decided one of the ways to do that was by supporting the families in Judea and Samaria, because, it's one of the most demonized places in the world right now. Everyone stands against Judea and Samaria and the people there, even though it's the heartland of Israel. It's the place that God specifically chose. And so what we did was in 2016, we went over there and we found families and small businesses that we could support. And we started bringing their products over here to the States to sell them. And so we really feel, this is a work that God has given us an opportunity to stand alongside his people in the restoration work that he's doing in the land. And so we're just so blessed to be a part of the restoration he's doing and to stand alongside these amazing families.
And where might potential customers find these products to buy them?
We have a website. It's called blessedbyisrael.com, B-U-Y, blessedbyisrael.com. And we have all our products on there. We ship around the world. And so it's just a great way to get the word out. We like to share the stories of the families behind the products. And we like to say that each product you buy, you're also supporting a family and a small business behind them. Not only do you have an opportunity to get these amazing high quality products, you also get to support a cause and a people and God's work of restoration and redemption.
As I understand it, some of your suppliers have no other outlet for their products anywhere else in the world. Why is that?
Well, a lot of these are small family businesses, and with the way the world stands against them, it's hard for them to get their products out. And even people in Israel, a lot of people in Israel don't understand why they're living in Judea and Samaria and think that they're an obstacle to peace. But this is the very land that God chose, and we know that. And these people are just taking a stand on the land that God's given to their fathers. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that. So it's hard for them to find people that will buy their products or support them. And so we've been given an opportunity that we're one of their only outlets, and especially nowadays with the way coronavirus is affecting people and small businesses. They can't even sell, in Israel anymore. So today we're really their only outlet to get their products out. So now more than ever, it's important to support these people, in a time where they're hurting and they don't have a lot of business. This is a time where we really need to step up and support them.
Amen to that. You and I understand this region to be called Judea and Samaria, and we know why. Most of the rest of the world knows it as the West Bank. If someone were to come up to you and talk about the West Bank, how would you explain the difference to them?
Well, the West Bank, it's really a made-up term because we know that this is the ancient land of Judea and Samaria, and this is the land that God promised and gave to Israel. And 85% of what you read in the Bible happened in Judea and Samaria. It's really the heartland of Israel, the very place where the scriptures happened, where Yeshua would have walked, where the prophets would have walked and prophesied on these hills. And so in giving away this land, you're really giving away the very heart of Israel and what God promised to the Jewish people. The world tries to marginalize and say this is the West Bank, this is not their land, but this is God's land that he promised to the Jewish people.
Right there in Samaria, there is Elon Moreh, which is the place where God showed Abraham all the land and promised it to him and his seed forever. And just across the valley from Elon Moreh is Shechem, the city today called Nablus. What happened in Shechem? Jacob took Shechem. Jacob's well is at Shechem. The kings of Israel were anointed at Shechem. Jesus, Yeshua, came through that place in Samaria, and that's where he met the woman at the well. Is there anything else special that you want to add to that, Matthew?
Yeah, there's so many places. Like I said, 80 to 85% of the Bible is there. So we're going to have all these stories. We have Hebron. That's the place where the patriarchs are buried, where King David was crowned king over Israel. So this place is just full of amazing stories. We have Shiloh, where the tabernacle was, Shiloh, for 369 years the tabernacle was there. And so there's just so many different places and so many stories of this place that they want to give away, that the world wants them to let go of. But this is where history happened. This is where the people of Israel were, and this is God's land, the heartland of Israel.
Now, you have learned this by walking the land. Most of us learn it the other way around of we study the stories in the Bible and then, by the grace of God, get to go and visit and see where these things happen. How has getting to know the land and the people enhanced your understanding and interaction with the scriptures?
Yeah, it's been amazingly impactful, to stand on the hills where the events happen that you read about in the Bible. It just brings a whole nother perspective and a whole nother level to what you're reading in the Bible. So I think that's been one of the greatest experiences of my life, to walk in the places where Jesus, Yeshua would have walked in Israel, walk in places where Abraham would have walked. You talked about a Lomere, to be able to sit up there and actually read the story where Abraham looked out over the land. I'm sitting here reading it. And it just brings a whole another level to what you're reading. Just to be able to do that, I encourage everyone to go over there and be able to sit in these places and open the Bible. And right there, the story, comes to life right in front of you.
Now, you were talking about what the world calls the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, not what the world might call Israel proper, say Tel Aviv or Sea of Galilee. What would you say to someone who says, why do you go there? It's dangerous. It's a whole lot more dangerous than the rest of Israel.
Well, God takes care of his people. That would be the first thing. If God has promised that this is going to be the land that he's given to Israel, why should we be afraid to walk in it? There's always going to be danger, but I have never experienced anything that would make me afraid to walk in this land. I've always felt perfect peace being there because I know that I'm walking in God's land. I'm walking amongst his people, and he has his hand over me. And so just being in a place where God has you, it just brings you peace, and walking in faith really brings a whole nother level, and you feel secure there. You feel like God's watching over you, and God has his hand over this land. This is God's chosen land, and he's watching. And so I think for me, I've always felt safe while in Judea and Samaria. There
are other people who live there. What kind of interaction have you had with the Arabs who live in Judea and Samaria, and what have you observed about their interaction with their Jewish neighbors?
Well, we've always been really in the Jewish communities. We've never really had much interaction with Arabs or Palestinians that live there, but we have seen their communities, and unfortunately, it's very hostile towards their Jewish neighbors. Israelis and Jewish people have always been very open to having a relationship, but their Arab neighbors are not interested in that, and so it's brought a very hostile feeling to places there. And when we go, we stay on Har Bracha, Mount of Blessing, which is right over Shechem. And you look down there, and it's an Arab city. It's one of the largest in Judea and Samaria. And it's just a very hostile city towards Israel and towards the Jewish people. And every Friday, a lot of Fridays, they have protests. They go up and try and get into the settlement of Har Bracha, and they'll riots, burn tires, and everything. It's a spirit of hate against the Jewish people and against God. And the Jewish people, they want to live in peace, but then they have the Arabs and the Palestinians that are fighting against God's people and God's chosen people, the Jewish people. And they just have this hate towards everything that God's doing and the restoration in the land.
That's one of the tragedies that we have seen over this whole process of returning the people of God to the promised land of God. Those who study history, if they bother to, would know that what you have just described is the Jewish attitude from the beginning. In 1947, when the United Nations divided the land and said there will be a Jewish state and an Arab state, it was the Jews who said, yes, we'll accept. It was the Arabs who rejected. To someone who is not acquainted with that history and is only seeing the anti-Israel propaganda out there, how would you advise them to set the record straight?
Well, obviously going back and reading history, like you said, that's a good start. But then, reading the Bible and knowing that this is the land that God's promised to his people. This is the land that he's bringing them back to. And Israel has always been open to having peace and living peacefully by their neighbors. But throughout history, the Arabs have always had a spirit of hatred against God and what God was doing in the land. And unfortunately, there's a lot of propaganda, and the news spins it as Israel being the bad guy, per se. But like you said, throughout history, the Jewish people have always wanted peace. They've always been open to living peacefully. But unfortunately, it's been their Arab neighbors that have always, we've seen so many wars the Arab people have come against to destroy Israel. And they've always had this hatred for God and for his people.
Now, if we can shift the topic just a little bit, Matthew, one of these amazing things about you and your brothers, and how many brothers have you got?
I have 4 brothers. I'm the third. I'm the middle child.
Okay. You have grown up in this environment where you're acquainted with Jews, with the land of Israel, with the promises of the God of Israel, and you are not afraid to see interaction between Christians and Jews. So this is an encouraging thing for those of us who've come up differently. What would you say to those in the church who might question what interaction we should have with Jews and whether even we should call them brothers and sisters?
Well, it's been an amazing experience to get to know families living in Judea and Samaria and the Jewish people. And this is God's chosen people. And so for those that don't want to interact, just read the Bible. God loves the Jewish people, and he wants us to fix the relationship that's been broken over the years. For thousands of years, unfortunately, there's a history of Christians persecuting the Jews. But we know that that's God. That's not what God wants. God wants us to be able to come together and work together and have these relationships and build these relationships. And there's this wall that's been built because of Christian persecution of the Jewish people. And so for many years, we haven't had a relationship, and we haven't been able to talk and have discussions. And fortunately now we're seeing that because Christian people are coming in repentance, we're seeing this wall starting to break down, and we're seeing relationships starting to form. And that's what we've been so blessed to see, is through the work that we're doing, coming and supporting the Jewish people and not persecuting, not, trying to drag them this way or force them into anything, but just coming with an attitude of servanthood. That's really opening relationships and building relationships. And so this is God's chosen people, and we're to come in and walk alongside them as brothers. And that's really the attitude and the relationship we have to have.
And this brings up probably the hardest question that I ask anyone on this walk with you and me. The stumbling block to both parts of Israel is the Messiah. Isaiah 8:14 says that. So what would you say to a Christian brother or sister who would ask, well, what about Jesus? Where does he fit into this?
Yeah. Well, like I said, over the years, there's been so much Christian persecution of the Jewish people that they're not open to hearing anything that we say. And so when we come with an attitude of servanthood and an attitude of just coming alongside them as brothers, that's how we want to share the message of Yeshua. So when they see our servanthood and they see our love, through that they can see the love of Yeshua. And so it's not that, it's that the Jewish people, we have defamed the name of Yeshua over the years. Christians, the Jewish people, have persecuted the Jewish people over the years in the name of Yeshua. Germany was 90% Protestant nation, a Christian nation, or they claimed to be a Christian nation, yet they killed 6 million of God's people. And when we come to them now and we want to force them to become Christians or talk to them about Jesus, they're not open to receiving that. And so when we come with an attitude of servanthood and we come alongside them as brothers, that's when they see the love of Yeshua, and they're open to having discussions with us, and they're seeing us as servants of Yeshua, and we're bringing a good name back to Yeshua amongst the Jewish people.
Are you still able to continue with that interaction, even if they're not willing to accept your belief that Yeshua is the Messiah of Israel?
Yeah, well, when you have a good relationship, you can talk, you can disagree about these things, and you can have a good discussion with it. But they're open, they're open to these discussions. And, once you have that relationship with them, then even if you disagree on something, you can still walk together towards what God is doing in the restoration of Israel in the world.
Which gets to the next question. What things do we have in common with our Jewish brethren?
Yeah, well, we have a lot in common. We're both going towards the final goal of God's redemption and restoration. And although we might not agree on who the Messiah is or if he's come already, we can agree on, what he wants us to do. And so that's what the Jewish people are going, is they're working towards the restoration of the land. And what we want to do is we want to come alongside them in that work, in God's work of redemption. And so I think we have a lot of similarities, and the things that we want to accomplish, the things that we know that God has for us, the things that we know he wants us to do. And so I think we need to put aside the disagreements that we've had, and we need to work together. We need to be brothers, and we need to have these discussions, but at the same time, we need to not have an attitude of replacing the Jewish people or of hatred towards them, or that they need to do this or need to do that, but we need to put that aside, and we need to walk with them towards the restoration.
That's another great answer, and I hear your heart in it, Matthew. As we're coming to the end of our time together, let me ask about your personal aspirations. I know on the Nation's Ninth of Av team, you have done a lot more of the technical aspects of getting our website in order and things like that. But what is it that you would like to do as a career path or a ministry path?
Yeah, well, right now I work as the web developer for our business, Blessed by Israel, and I've been helping, obviously, with the more technical aspects, the website and things like that. And for me, I really enjoy web design, web developing. So to be able to do that while at the same time be a part of different ministries and being a part of something I love and have passion in has been really amazing for me. And so for my future, I see always working with Israel, because I love working with Israel and being a part of God's redemption. And then, I see that I have a vision I love web design, obviously. So right now this is the perfect job for me, I think, being able to be in web design and also working with what I'm passionate about, and obviously what God's passionate about. That's each blessing.
Well, I pray that you are able to walk that out to its fullness, and sure enough, Father will give you some surprises along the way.
I'm sure.
Well, Matthew Wearp, thank you very much for sharing your story, your thoughts, and your dreams with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a blessing.
Here is Mason Clover with We Want to Go Home from his album The Isaiah 43 Project, available at masonclover.com.
We call our name. call our names and gather us home. We want to go home. We call our names and gather us home. We want to go home. We call our names and gather us home. We want to go home.
Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Midrash portion of Reunion Roadmap. This is David Jones. With me today is Barry Phillips. Shalom, brother.
Shalom, David.
Hey, you ever have days where you just feel strange?
The question should be, do you have days that you don't feel strange?
Touche. I was thinking recently about the stranger in Scripture and different ideas, different takes on it. But I saw something interesting when I was thinking about the Shemitah years. 6 years you work, and the seventh year you let the land rest so that the strangers or the poor, whoever, they can come gather and come take what they need, and everyone can eat, but it's not a time to work the land. Okay. So in this, I thought it was interesting, context plays a role in how you approach things sometimes, right? So I was thinking about this in context of Exodus 23, starting back in verse 9, says, "You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, seeing you were strangers in the land of Egypt." Then it goes to verse 10. "So 6 years you sow your land and shall gather in the fruits." It's a weird transition, but if you keep looking, it says, "But in the seventh year you let it rest and lie still, so that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave, the beasts of the field eat. Like manner you shall do the same with your vineyard, same with your olive." And then verse 12, 6 days you work, and on the seventh day you rest. So there's this connection between the stranger being in your midst, not oppressing them, and to what end, to what purpose, I believe, so they would make a decision to come in to be a part of and among Israel. And continually through the scripture, we see where Yahweh is telling us not to oppress a stranger and not to do this. And why? Well, other than it's just the right thing to do, not to be cruel to your fellow man. But the idea is so that they could come among and have a place alongside you in the kingdom. Now, what would make a stranger want to be a part? And that's to see the God that you serve, to see the life that you live, and to see that there's a better way than the rest of the world is doing it. And we do that by showing kindness and helping to supply even just the basic needs that they can't do. So with that, moving along I went to Isaiah 14, and it says, "For Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. I will set them in their own land," and here's where it caught my eye, "and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Yaakov." Now, interesting, because he says cleave to Beit Yaakov, the house of Yaakov, which we know the house of Jacob, the 10 northern tribes of the northern kingdom, the 10 tribes in the northern kingdom that we were dispersed and gathered into all the world, waiting to be gathered back. And but it's not just these natural born descendants that we're looking at. It's the people who were scattered into all the world, but yet planted like seeds, waiting for this harvest. And we find that there are people that are going to join with Israel in returning. So to join with people. And this is what I see in Isaiah 14, because the strangers will be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And that word cleave is the same word for cleave back in Leviticus 25:11, where it talks about that which grows of itself. So to cleave to the house of Jacob means to come in among, to rest with, to learn with, to praise Yah with, and to starting to produce fruit on its own. And still digging this rabbit hole just a little bit deeper here, Barry. It makes me think of the two sticks, in Ezekiel 37, where he has these two sticks, and he says, on one stick for Judah, write the children of Israel and his companions. He doesn't just say for Israel. He says for Israel and his companions, Chavrav, which means, and those joined with him. And then take another stick for the stick of Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel. Now, wait a minute. What do we just see in Isaiah 14:1? The house of Jacob and the house of Israel is the same people. And so, and the house of Israel and his companions. So the stick of Ephraim, the house of Israel, his companions. So those who come in to be, though they were strangers and though they come in to be a part of Israel, they're cleaving to the house of Jacob in their return to ultimately become one with Yahweh. The two sticks will become one in his hand. It is our responsibility, though, to get these two sticks near to one another. We can't make them become one, but we can get them close. So here we're coming close to one another for the purpose of being joined together, but this is part of our battle. How do we see the need to be joined together? Well, first off, taking the work the 6 days, but then that rest the seventh, like Shabbat was a time when people would gather together and they would study and they would worship and they would do these within their communities. So how do we learn to join together? Well, we've worked the 6. We do that, but we need to be able to have that joining with. Yeshua says, if you're not gathering with me, you're scattering. So we need to learn how to be gathering together with one another, which brings us to the place of who are we joined to when we come into Israel? We're joined to Israel. We talk about we're part of the tree in Romans 11, right? Well, what tree are you grafted into? It's Israel. And then Isaiah 56, kind of wrapping this all up, and I'm going to throw this ball of twined thoughts to you here. Isaiah 56, verse 6. Also the sons of the stranger that join themselves to Yahweh, to serve him, to love the name of Yahweh, to be his servants. Everyone that keeps the Sabbath from polluting it and takes hold of my covenant. Even them will I bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. The Lord God, which gathers the outcasts of Israel, says, yet will I gather others besides those that are gathered. And so, we've heard this phrase, my house will be called a house of prayer for all people, but not too many people stop to understand the context of how this was presented was in keeping Shabbat, keeping covenant, coming in to be grafted in among the people of Israel. And then the offerings will be accepted, and we were no longer outcasts, foreigners, strangers. Now I'm thinking Ephesians chapter 2. We're no longer strangers, foreigners, and don't have any hope, but we are now brought in to be a part of a commonwealth of Israel and to be a part of his people. But learning how to do that has got a lot to do with the base that I just laid. Work the 6 days, rest the 7th.
Well, you are definitely on the deep end of thought today. And, the time of this recording, it's still in the morning, and David's already deep in there. A couple of things come to mind. One, and first of all, is the word for stranger is, and most of us have heard this, it's ger. It can mean anything from, a sojourner, someone passing through, a guest, an alien, a foreigner, someone who does not belong to the status quo. But another definition is a newcomer lacking inherited rights. I find that interesting, that those that are being brought in, they are coming in without any guarantee of acceptance and inheritance to be shared outside of the belief that Messiah Yeshua will make a place for us. The root of this word is ger. It's first used to say that Abraham was a sojourner. And we're reminded, Yah reminds us, you are to show compassion to the sojourner, to the ger among you, for your father, Abraham, was also a sojourner. If you think about it, Yitzhak was also a sojourner in that he went down to Gerar and lived among the Philistines. And Yaakov was a sojourner in that he went to Laban's house and had to work for everything that he accomplished and would have come out with nothing had the mercy of Yah not been on him. So Laban mistreated the sojourner that was among him. It's human nature when you're sitting in a congregation or in a group of peers and someone who is not a peer walks in. Everyone turns and looks and everyone's thinking at the same time, who are they, why are they here, and wonder what they're all about. And that's just human nature. But Yah just tells us that we are to be compassionate. So as we come in, David, you said something about along the lines of covenant, and that we're no longer to be considered a ger, but to be included along with. We can have one of two attitudes. One attitude is to come in with an arrogant demand of acceptance. I'm born again, and you have to take me. And I come in, what's mine? I'm here, and I want what's mine. Nobody would accept anyone coming into their home with an arrogant attitude and walk in as a guest and say, now, what's for supper? And no, that's not the way I like it. You will cook it the way I like it. We would invite them to leave pretty quick. To come in with an understanding of, I'm here solely by covenant. I'm here solely by mercy. I don't deserve to be here, but I have been included along with. The prodigal came home with a servant heart, saying, I will be a servant in your house. And for that attitude, he was giving a place of prominence at the table. If we come in demanding, yes, we're included with. Yes, it's a fulfillment of prophecy. Yes, it's the divine will of our Creator, and it is a work of redemption by our Messiah. But we have no right to demand position or status or inclusion. We should be a servant. And we can come in arrogantly and say, well, I wasn't redeemed to be a servant, brother. Yes, we were. All of us are to be a servant to the Most High and then to one another, and we're commanded to be as such too in the Word. So, I'm rejoicing with you over this understanding of inclusion and Shabbat being a time of bringing the stranger in and including and so forth. I rejoice in all that. But when we show up at the table, Yeshua said to the one that came to the wedding feast, friend, where is your wedding garment? And he was rejected because he didn't come in correctly. So we need to be careful about our attitude.
It's a good way to put it. It's because of the flip side of that works just as well. Yahweh says you are not to oppress or look down on a stranger. Well, us as a stranger should not do that to each other or the people of God, especially when we come in to be among the people of Israel. I mean, we can't say, oh, I was of the nations and now I'm part of you guys. See, I'm better. No, that's not the way it is. I'm thinking back to Romans where it says, you don't support the root supports you.
How would we feel if someone from a foreign country and a different language tried to correct us on our English grammar? Going in and telling a Jew, no, this Hebrew word means thus and such. And he looking at us like, do you speak Hebrew? No, I don't speak it, but I know what Strong's Concordance says. Doesn't go over well. You're not doing Shabbat right. Does not go over well. Where's your tzitzit? That's not the right colors. Doesn't go over well.
Well, now we're back into love one another.
Absolutely.
That's what Yeshua told us to do, love one another. And we can bring correction to one another in a loving manner without being prideful or arrogant. And that's just a matter of maybe my understanding is off. Maybe we just need to have some conversations.
It could be.
Maybe.
It could be. Yes. So, David, looks like we have run slap out of time here. If anyone wants to connect with us, share your thoughts on this, you can reach us at reunionroadmap@BYNA.com. We would love to hear from you.
Jimmy Black now sings Can I Come Home from The Great I Am, available at jimmyblack.com.
Father, may that be the cry of our hearts tonight. Is that we would return back to your ways, that we would stop running from you, and finally fall back in love with you again. So, Abba, would you cause our hearts to beat again for you? Would you cause us to fall in love with you once again? Forgive me. I walked away from your love. Breathe your life in me, to my heart and will be yours. Father, have mercy, Lord. Have mercy, Lord, have mercy on me. Yeshua, have mercy, Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy on me. Can I come home back to your love and will? Can I come home back to your loving arms? Have mercy, Lord. Have mercy, Lord. Have mercy on me. Yeshua, have mercy, Lord. Have mercy, Lord. Have mercy on me. Come on, ask them. Father, have mercy, Lord. Have mercy, Lord. Have mercy on
Well, that was Jimmy Black, his song, Can I Come Home? And before that, we had Mason Clover, We Want to Go Home. Before that, we listened to Matthew Wearp talking about the homeland of Israel. And then somewhere in between, we had Barry Phillips and David Jones bringing us a midrash, which they have called 6-Year Strangers. Stefania, do you detect a theme in this show?
Yes, I do. And particularly this midrash and the folks that we're interviewing, and we're talking about nations, 9th of Av, and how are we to interact with our older brother, which I think is extremely important. We're kind of the new kids on the block. I mean, when you talk about strangers, it says we've seen Torah as a strange thing. And if we go ahead to our older brother and act like we know it all, Barry even talked about the point of that sometimes we'll say that we know Hebrew better than the ones who speak it natively. There's something wrong with that picture, and I think we need to humble ourselves and just listen and learn.
That's a great way to look at it, Stefania. Now, Matthew, in his testimony, was telling us about the perspective from the Christian side, which you and I and so many of our listeners have come from, which doesn't even look at Jews as what you have said, our older brother of Judah. Barry and David understand this, and that's their whole point of we are grafted into what country? Israel. What nation? Israel. There is no other covenant nation by which God is working redemption for all nations. And it really, I think, starts with understanding. Well, you can enter into it in many ways, but we want to get to that understanding that the Jewish people are not just some other people out there. We are related. They are our brothers and sisters. You don't have to come to the same understanding you and I do of, we are Ephraim, the 10 tribes, grafted in spiritually there, and they are Judah, the 2 tribes that remained loyal. You don't have to have that worldview. Just get to the point of understanding Jews and Christians, followers of Yeshua, we are all part of the same covenant nation. And that, I think, would go a long way toward getting us to that place where we can, as you said, listen and learn, rather than barging in and saying, I'm grafted in, I'm redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, you need to accept me immediately. That really, let me ask you, does that sound like the attitude we've taken for 2,000 years?
No, it does not sound like a humble attitude. It doesn't sound like an attitude of saying, hey, I'm new to this and I need to learn. It sounds like more of a person that thinks that I've become an instant expert. There is nothing instant.
There is nothing instant, which is why the new covenant is all about changing our hearts.
Yes.
So that we no longer regard all the Torah, all the law of God as something strange, as you had referred to from Jeremiah 19. That seems like a good place to end, although we could go on talking about this for a long time. So thank you all for listening. This is Al McCarn on behalf of Stefania Pappas, Barry Phillips, and David Jones. Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on the Reunion Roadmap, a production of BYNA Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.